The bell signaling midnight rings out and reverberates throughout the small cemetery, nestled next to the ancient church. The building has stood in this place since the late 1300s, and the cemetery has been here for just about the same amount of time. From your hiding spot in the nearby woods, you and your cousin wait with eager anticipation to see if this particular story is true. This is your first visit to France, and your cousin was beyond excited to tell you about the local folklore. At first, nothing happens, and you start to wonder if this is all just some elaborate prank. Embarrassment, hurt, and frustration all start to build up. But then you hear a sharp intake of breath from her, and you see what you've come here for. The moonlight illuminates the figures as they slowly make their way to the center of the cemetery. It's a macabre mixture of the living and the dead, skeletons holding the hands of horrified-looking people from all walks of life. Rich and poor, young and old, it doesn't make a difference. And the leader of this is something you can scarcely believe. I'm Bree.
I'm Christiana.
Be on the lookout for dancing skeletons.
Because you're about to hear something strange.
Welcome to our third snapshot, the Danse Macabre.
We're doing it!
So, as always, I'm going to start by shouting out my sources. So, Wikipedia. Now, I used several different wiki pages. So, there was one on the Danse Macabre itself. There was one on the Sanson piece. And then several different well-known artists, musicians, what have you, have done versions of the Danse Macabre. So, each of them has individual, like especially the musicians and composers. So I'll shout that out when I get there. Otherwise, there'd be like 8 different
Sure.
Wikipedias. The collector, what does the Danse Macabre symbolize? An allegory of death. They just told you. They don't let you guess. There's a Britannica article, the Dance of Death, and the LA Philharmonic, Danse Macabre. All right, so what do you know about the Danse Macabre?
I know it was composed by Camille Saint-Saëns? Saint-Saëns?
Sanson. Yes,
Sanson,
Camille
thank you.
Sanson.
And it's a really lovely piece of music, and it's kind of spooky. That's about it.
So that piece of music is actually part of a much larger tradition.
Okay.
Dating back to the 1300s.
Ooh.
So did I go into a lot of detail on the composition by Sanson? Yes, because I'm a music nerd. But there's a whole tradition that it's built on.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with what exactly is the Danse Macabre?
What is it?
What is it? That is the question. It is, so Danse Macabre is French. This is like the one thing I can say well in French. One thing.
We've been through this, guys.
It means the dance of death in English.
Okay.
It comes from the late Middle Ages and is considered an artistic genre of allegory. My Pennsylvania Dutch came out there. I was like, you can't do French words. About the universal nature of death, right? Because no matter who you are, unless you're like a Highlander, death comes for you occasionally, eventually.
Sure. On the occasion.
On the
Every
occasion.
now and then we have tea, and then eventually he actually comes for me.
Adriel and I are great friends. We meet like once a month. We watch horror movies together. He tells me how inaccurate they are.
Fair. I love it.
Anyways, so it's a form of memento mori. Have you come across this term before?
I have, mostly through grave art or stone, like tombstone art, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. What is, I feel like I'm quizzing you. Question number 1, what is the purpose of memento mori?
Isn't it in memory or?
So memento is memory.
Yeah.
What does mori mean in Latin?
Remember death?
Yep.
Okay.
It's like, hey, by the way, you're going to die one day.
It's just kind of like a reminder of like, this is what comes for, I mean, we said it already, this is what comes for all of us eventually.
Yeah, like the pretty much literal translation is, remember you must die.
Sure.
Like you said, it's seen a lot in art and architecture. When we talk about the Danse Macabre, we're talking about a form of memento mori. And there's certain players, certain characters that tend to show up in this. It's more than just the piece by Sanson, but that's what most people know of when they hear this term.
Okay.
We're going to actually go into some art history.
Oh, my favorite.
I know. I was doing the research. I'm like, well, Christiana's going to like this. So who are the players? Who are the people? And I guess they're still people. They're just not alive. Mm-hmm. Who are our characters, our beings? So death, or the personification of death that summons representatives from all walks of life to join in a dance to the grave. So usually the following people are represented: a pope, an emperor, a king, a child, and a laborer. So there's variations on this depending on the text and depending on some of the artwork too.
Okay.
This is meant to be both like frivolous, like, oh, look how silly it is. It's all these peoples of different walks of life dancing with skeletons and cadavers, basically. So it's supposed to be silly, but also like mildly horrifying, but they're dancing with skeletons and cadavers.
Sure. It's a very interesting juxtaposition there.
Yes. So we're going to get a little bit more into the description, because that was just kind of a brief, right? So what does this art actually depict? So it's a round dance led by death. It's a chain of alternating dead and live dancers from, like we said, high, low, different ages, different social standings. Each living person's hand is held by an animated, or I put in parentheses, reanimated skeleton or cadaver. I didn't put this in my notes, but it's like some of the artwork shows like the cadavers being very decayed. So like being eaten by worms. I was like, that'll stick in my memory. I don't have to write that part down.
We love medieval art. We love it.
Yes, we do. Usually there's a short dialogue with each pair of dancers where death is summoning them and the people being summoned are lamenting their impending doom. Like death's like, hey, come on over, let's dance. And the people are like,
oh, man. Oh,
so
no.
this is it, I guess. All right, so death, or the personification of death, to be more exact, is shown leading the Danse Macabre.
Okay.
Like it's a round circle dance, which probably means more to you than it does to me.
I think it's just more or less a style of dancing. I've seen it I think you can see it in the Victorian era too. It's, and round dancing is kind of, you can place it throughout history. Like a maypole could be a round dance, you could even say. So I think it's just more or less like the specific style of dancing, of social dancing for that era. If I had to take a wild guess, I'm not super versed on like medieval dance, but that's your
2 cents.
That's my 2 cents.
As I was doing this, I was like, half this information is much more your jam than mine. So I was like, you'll be able to give lots of good input on this.
I'll do my best. I love your confidence in me.
So like we said, it's a circular dance, but it like wasn't a fun, joyful one because the people didn't have a choice. They were like, hey, you're dancing.
It was.
I took this quote, I think it was from the Wiki article, but it might have been from the, what is a Danse Macabre, an allegory, where they gave you the answer. Christianity often regarded dancing as something dangerous, evoking pagan ritual. It could easily turn into a vice. However, during the Middle Ages, dance and religion coexisted, as it was common to dance inside churches or cemeteries at Christmas or Easter.
Ah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense with them thinking it is evil. I mean, think of the movie like Footloose is what first thing that comes to my mind.
Just a couple of years later.
Just a couple of years later, yeah.
Well, and the kind of instruments, I think I went into this slightly in the, because I didn't say this to begin with. Each of the snapshots are kind of connected to a big episode, and this is connected to the Paganini episode.
Our guy, Paganini.
Some of the research I did in that, I remember saying something along the lines of like the instrumentation also mattered. Like violins tended to be more of secular, so non-church music, where things like harps, piano, well, depending on the time period, organs, harpsichords, clavichords would have been much more seen in churches.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
So these, kind of going back to the Danse Macabres themselves, were possibly enacted at village pageants or court masques, where people dressed up as corpses from different parts of society.
Oh.
It's kind of cool.
I love that.
One of my sources said this may be linked to the tradition of people wearing costumes during All Hallow Tide. So that includes Halloween, or in the church year, All Saints Eve, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church. That's a mouthful. And Remembrance Day. So these are a couple of holidays in certain churches, especially the more Catholic. And it's late October, early November. All right. If you had to guess, where do you think these traditions might have come from? How did this form? What do you think the origins of the Danse Macabre is?
Well, I'm trying to think. It might have been an origin to make it maybe like less scary, almost like it is scary, but it's something that you can welcome. Like it's something that happens to all of us, so you might as well, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm like spitting that out correctly.
I see where you're coming from, I think you are probably having a much more positive view of the Danse Macabre than the people who were doing the art did.
I guess that's true because they were saying like dancers were forced to do this. So I guess that's true.
What kind of things happened in the 13th century?
Plague. Oh, sorry. No, I just had a thought because Ring Around the Rosie was
a circular dance.
Yeah, well, a circular dance, but it's also I believe plague marks, like the actual like not lacerations, but
like the rashes kind of thing.
Yeah, were circular marks. Yeah, which I don't know if they did that purposefully with the circular dance, but that's a weird connection.
Well, and I don't have anything about Ring Around the Rosie in here, but so it was the ring around because it would get a very red color, and then I think the posies they were talking about like the different not incense, the stuff that they would wear in like the beaks of the herbs and stuff they would use to try and
as well. I believe flowers were sometimes put in dead people's pockets to help try to cut the smell, which I'm sure probably didn't work.
Well, that went somewhere fun. Yeah. Potentially some of this does come from illustrated sermon texts because remember at this time the population was largely illiterate.
Okay.
So that's what, I mean, I think that's part, I could be wrong here. I think that's part of the reason why a lot of like the grand cathedrals and stuff have so much artwork on it because it portrays different Bible stories.
That makes sense.
The people couldn't read.
Sure. That's interesting.
Religion was an important factor for context when looking at the works or ones that are about the Danse Macabre because a lot of them were in things like churches and cemeteries. And also, like, where did the French term Danse Macabre come from? So the Latin, Chorea Maccabeorum, which is the dance of the Maccabees. We briefly talked about the Maccabees in one of the Sauntering Vaguely Podwords episodes. Okay.
The term sounds familiar. I couldn't place which one we talked about it in, though.
It's an apocryphal book of the Bible. Okay, I'm just switching gears into religious studies. It's an apocryphal book of the Bible, which means that it is a book that does not show up in the main canon for most religions. It's, I believe, one of the Maccabees books is where the story of Hanukkah comes from.
Okay.
This references the book of Second Maccabees. It's about the martyrdom of a mother and her 7 sons.
Oh. Huh.
So we talked about some of the religious aspects. We're going to talk about some of the cultural and historical factors that had an influence on this. We already touched on some of them. So there was a shift in how artists depicted death after the 13th century. Before, it was portrayed as peaceful. There is confidence in this Christian idea of the resurrection and eternal life. People weren't, at least in the artwork, people were pretty chill. They were serene. They were like, yes, this is my eternal reward. Death was a part of life, but not necessarily scary, like you said before. And then shit hit the fan in the 1300s.
That makes sense. I'm sorry, I read just like a line ahead and I'm like, that does make sense that it would be a lot scarier because you're not just passing away in your sleep. You're seeing people starving to death, which is absolutely horrific way to go. And like the plague, seeing a new type of illness that has never been seen before, just ravaging a country.
Well, and you're seeing dead bodies in the street at that point because they didn't have places to go with a lot of the bodies. So in like that time period, we had the bubonic plague and some other plagues as well. We had other epidemics, we had famines, and we had the 100-Year War.
Yeah.
So like
to
you
name
said,
a few.
Name a few of the problems. So like you said, there was a lot of like people were seeing horrific dying, not just death, but horrific death.
Yeah.
This really changed people's attitudes on death. So my one source said that between 30 to 50% of the population in Europe passed away from the Black Death.
Ooh.
Or the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
That is about 25 million people. Now, there were some cities that had much higher death rates. I have to fact check myself. I don't know. I remember reading this somewhere in a textbook. I took AP World History, but the professor was kind of interesting. And it was Teach Yourself 10,000 Years of World History.
Oh, cute. Okay.
But she told us about how her neighbors in West Virginia had pet mountain lions and tried to secede from the United States. That's what I remember. That was 10th grade. Apparently, Poland had a low level of death or lower level of death because it had a very high Jewish population. Oh. And they were one of the few populations that had ritual bathing as part of their beliefs.
Okay.
So Poland fared pretty well.
Hygiene. Sure.
And that sticks in my mind because I'm Polish.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. there was like a city in Italy, I think, that like literally went on lockdown. Like no one came in, no one went out. If anyone had the plague, I guess they were allowed to go out, but like they locked down hard.
Yeah, it was like COVID before COVID happened.
So there was because of all of this death people were experiencing and seeing firsthand, there was this fear but fascination with the macabre. Like we said, the move and a lot of the artwork reflected this. So it went from the much more serene, yay, eternal reward, we don't want to die right now, but it's great when we do, to like all kinds of more like macabre, more just scary.
Just more morbid looking. I wonder too how much people really knew about what the after effects of death look like on a being as well.
I think they were probably pretty familiar with it by that point.
Well, that's what I mean. Like before that all hit, like the common like when the bubonic plague hit, for instance, people were seeing, bodies were just
decaying in the streets.
Yes, and the average person was seeing, oh, this is what happens to a body after, whereas they hypothetically may have not really seen that side of it before. And I wonder how much of an influence that had on artists. And
I also think it's important not to come from the American viewpoint on death, because we have a very different view on what death looks like and a very different fear of what death looks like in our country in these days.
Sure.
Like we have this weird, I was listening to a lore episode and he was talking about this, where like in American culture, right, like we are far removed from death if we can help it. It's like we don't touch the dead. Like we hire professionals to prepare our dead. That's not something that has been common throughout most of history.
Sure.
It's been a very like, hey, your father dies, so you take care of their remains and you take care for the burial. It's like, nope, you go to the mortician and the mortician does the things. And you do not, actually in like Polish culture, like most people like kiss and touch the body, and I can't, that freaks me out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I did hold my grandmother's hand when she passed away. Like not as she was passing, but afterwards I felt like I just needed to like hold her hand for a minute. And I did do that, which was an experience. I'd never done that before. But
I like ghosts. I have a thing with dead bodies.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to see a body after it's been embalmed, I think.
I think it's more that like I watch so much horror, I'm waiting for it to move.
Okay, fair.
I think
fair.
We'll keep going.
Yeah.
Back to the Danse Macabre. So another thing was that the life expectancy in the 13th century, this says was around 35 to 40 years old. However, I think I have a fact correction on this from my own brain. That might have been the life expectancy, but that was because of the high infant mortality rate, I think. I think I've learned that before.
Okay.
I think when people say the life expectancy, I could be making this up. I feel like I watch a lot of informational videos. When people say the life expectancy was so low then, people still lived, I think, into their 60s, 70s. I think it was more that the high infant mortality rate dropped it down.
That like the average.
Yeah, because it's the average.
Okay,
the average
sure.
life expectancy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because the infant mortality rates were super, super high. Well, I mean, because like so many women died in childbirth.
Yeah.
So that would drop it down too. And if you made it past a certain age and didn't die in childbirth, you were probably okay until the Black Plague.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that probably pushed it back down too a little bit.
Sure.
One of my sources also said that like the Danse Macabre was also kind of a social satire that shows that all are equal in death, regardless of social standing. You're all going to die.
That makes sense. I was thinking along when you said it was a king, a laborer, a child, a pope. That does make a lot. I was wondering if that was like almost the steps of death, but that makes more sense that it's everyone is here.
It's the great equalizer.
Right.
We're going to get into some of the representations in art, in text, and in music. And this is the part we're excited about. And then I will bring your keyboard in. It's your keyboard now.
Your old keyboard.
My old keyboard. I upgraded.
You did.
I did. I majorly upgraded. Well, it's an electric piano, technically.
Yes. But I still like the keyboard. I'm learning. I can play Mary Had a Little Lamb.
That's wonderful. Do you know how old that keyboard is?
I don't think I ever actually got a solid year on it.
I got it when I was 15 or 16.
Oh, sick. Okay.
So it is at least 16. It is at least 17, 16 years old.
Honestly, all things considered,
it's not bad.
Knock on wood, it's not bad.
So Wiki gave me several examples featuring the Danse Macabre, and I'm not going to go into every single thing. This is going to be a brief overview until we get to music, because that is my area of expertise. Sorry.
Yes.
One of them.
And I will not shut up if...
All right, so we'll start about art. We'll start with art. All right, so a lot of the early work was in a lot of the early artwork was in cemeteries and churches.
Okay.
Many were present in religious contexts, like murals on a church wall or on a cemetery wall. And the purpose was to remind people that death is invertible. No, that's not the word.
Inevitable.
Inevitable.
Invertible.
Invertible, I think that's what I was trying to say. Inevitable. And to encourage people to engage in moral reflection to cope with the reality of death. It's like, you better prepare yourself, friends.
That makes sense. It's showing death in such a scary way that it's like, this is what you're faced with. And especially in a society that was probably at the time pretty heavily Christian based, or, you know, whatever branches of...
They were probably Catholic to start at that time.
Sure. So it's kind of fire and brimstone...
Depending.
Type of deal.
It was, I think, we won't go into the religious context too far.
Right.
So one of the most well-known versions of this is from the 1400s, and it is a triumph of death painting, and it's a lost mural at the Holy Innocents Cemetery in Paris, France. Unfortunately, a lot of these have been lost because of their age and things happened, unfortunately. I think this one might have been saved in like wood cuttings or something.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. A lot of them were, actually.
Sure.
This dates from, I think it was made between 1424 and 1425. There may have been some political subtext here, as the mural depicts a crowned king at a time France did not have a crowned king.
Huh. Okay.
So there's also a mural on the cemetery walls of Dominican Abbey in Bern by Nicolas Manuel Deutsch in 1516, 1517. This was destroyed when the wall was torn down in 1660, but a copy from 1649 by Albrecht Quave. I didn't realize how much other languages I'd have to talk. I'd have to talk in words in other languages in this when I first started doing this research.
Yeah.
So another famous example of this is from about 1430, and it was found in the Pardon Churchyard at Old St. Paul's Cathedral in London, with text by John Lygate, known as the Dance of St. Paulys.
I would say Paulys, Paulylys.
And it was destroyed in 1549. A lot of them are destroyed. I don't think there's many that survive. And then there was the Totentanz.
That's fun to say.
I think that's right. Totentanz by Bernd Notke in St. Mary's Church, Lubeck. So this displayed the deceased dancers as very agile and lively, and the living dancers as very clumsy and passive.
Huh.
It was destroyed during the Allied bombing of Lubeck in World War II.
America, come on.
Well, it says Allied. It could have... There were a couple other countries in that.
That's true. I just jumped straight to us.
It was us.
Britain, France.
There were a couple other people that it could have been.
Canada, come on now. Canada.
Oh, Canada. So, and then there are some pretty famous some drawing series. And this was Hans Holbein the Younger, and he lived from 1497 to 1543, and he had a Dance of Death series. This was drawn in 1526. And then there were wood cuttings made by Hans Lutzelberger. These were not purely Catholic or Protestant, but could be modified for whichever doctrine the religious leaders followed.
Okay.
Because we would have had the schism by Martin Luther by that point.
Okay.
Death was shown in many different disguises and confronted individuals from all walks of life in this series. It didn't matter who you were, no one escapes death's clutches. Do you catching a theme here?
No.
So texts and poetry. Texts were often illustrated with illumination and wood cuts. So we briefly mentioned John Lydegate's Dance of Death. It's from a Middle English poem written in the 15th century. There's a translation of the poem with the same name.
Okay.
So it's a moral allegory of death, leading a procession of people across social standings to their grave. Once again, repeated theme here. It's like they're all writing and drawing the same thing.
I know. It's weird how trends work like that in the art world.
And the music world.
Yeah.
In the writing world. I pulled this quote from Wikipedia. The poem includes a variety of characters, including the emperor, the pope, the cardinal, the bishop, the abbot, the prioress, the monk, the nun, the doctor, the lawyer, the merchant, the knight, the plowman, the beggar, and the child. The poem is written in rhyme royal, a 7-line stanzic form that was popular in the Middle Ages. And then this was kind of an interesting one. There is a text devoted completely to women. It is the Danse Macabre of women, very aptly named. It survives in 5 manuscripts and 2 print editions. It's in Paris, and there are 36 women in various ages that are called to join the dance. Wikipedia didn't give me a date for when this was written.
Huh. That's interesting.
All right, are you ready for the fun? This is the fun part for me. We're going to get into the music part of this. There's a lot of musical settings. I didn't actually realize how many there were. I am not going to give all of them because there's a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So I just went into some of the more famous compositions. There's one setting that I'm going to go into a lot more detail. Any guess on what that is?
One setting?
There's one musical setting that I'm going to go into the most detail. You want to guess which piece that is?
Danse Macabre.
Well, a lot of them are called Danse Macabre, the Sanson piece.
Yeah, that's what I was, sorry.
All right, so when I go through these different composers, I am pulling information from Wikipedia. I'm just going to say that. So the first one I'm going to talk about is by Franz Liszt, who was he was known for his piano work. Totentanz, and a paraphrase of Dies Irae. So he was a Hungarian composer. He lived between 1811 and 1886. In 1849, he composed a set of variations based on the Latin chant melody Dies Irae. This literally means the day of wrath.
Oh.
The translation is day of wrath. And it was a piece for solo piano, which makes sense with Liszt, and orchestra.
Okay.
Based on Gregorian materials. That's what Dies Irae was. This piece has medieval sounding passages. Some canons, so not like the boom canon. Like a canon is when certain phrases are repeated in music. So like row, row, row your boat is one, where someone would start singing.
Canon in D is popular as a wedding song.
It's a repeated motif, and usually the next, someone would sing like the first. So the canon in D is do 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 do. But before that phrase is finished, someone would start playing the phrase again. So you would have this like round almost effect. Mm-hmm. Welcome to music theory.
It's very pretty. This might sound familiar specifically with canon in D. Mm-hmm. Trans-Siberian Orchestra has a version of it with a children's choir, and it is beautiful.
A lot of musicians absolutely hate canon in D because they have to play it at weddings a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Besides the canon section, which is the medieval chant, there's also a very percussive piano part, so it sounds very much like a medieval chant. There's a few different variations. If we can link them into the show notes. I put one in here. Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're going to get into the Sanson piece. Yay! The Danse Macabre, Opus 40 by Camille Saint-Saëns. He was a French composer. He lived 1835 to 1921. Danse Macabre is one of his more famous pieces, but he's also known for the Carnival of the Animals, which is a really cool collection. Danse Macabre was written in 1874 and premiered on January 24th of 1875. I love how it's described a poem for orchestra, because that is what it is. It started out, and I want to find a surviving version of this. It started out in 1872 as an art song for voice and piano with French text by Henri Katsalis. I'm butchering that probably. It was reworked into a symphonic poem, and the vocal line was replaced by the solo violin part. So I'm going to give just some information. I'm going to do a little bit of pianoing. You guys are going to hear how badly I play piano. I'm a singer, not a pianist. So the theme from Danse Macabre is... And then you might recognize... and so on and so forth. That is, I think, the vocal part that was taken over by the violin part.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing that is very well known about this is there is the solo violin's entrance is on a tritone, which we talked about briefly in the Paganini episode. So a tritone is known as the devil in music. It's called the devil's interval a lot. So yes. In music, like intervals, or like so you'd have your starting note, which is a C, a middle C right now, and then a second would be C to D, and that's dissonant. So anything that's dissonant is going to sound kind of like clashy.
Yeah.
So the E string, which we're actually going to go to the higher E, is tuned down a half step. And so the start of this song has that clashiness. So you have So there's a couple more things I want to talk briefly about, and then I will stop giving everyone all this information they probably don't want.
No, nay, never.
Via Wikipedia, according to legend, Death appears at midnight every year on Halloween. Death calls forth the dead from their graves to dance for him while he plays his fiddle, represented by the solo violin here. His skeletons dance for him until the cockerel, until some kind of rooster crows. Because I apparently can't say that word. At dawn, when they must return to their graves until the next year. So this is the like poem behind the Sanson piece.
Okay.
There's some other really cool musical elements. This piece opens with a harp. I never realized this before.
Yeah.
It does, though. I listened to it. I'm like, oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It opens with a harp playing a single note, which is a D, which is the note the violin also opens up on.
Okay.
12 times. So what do you think this signifies?
The stroke of midnight is what. Yep.
Yep. And then we said that the solo violin's entrance comes next, and then there's a tritone in there. The
Right.
E string is also tuned down a half step to be an E flat instead of an E natural, just to kind of make the dissonance in the tritone.
Okay. To really, really
Make it sound eerie.
hammer that in. Sure.
This piece gets a lot more energetic as it goes on. And then Dies Irae has come back to us. It's in a major key, though, which is abnormal
Okay.
at some point. And then we have an oboe mimicking the rooster crowing for the dawn breaking. Another cool thing is that he used xylophones to make like a rattly sound for the bones. And this can also be found in the Carnival of the Animals, as I mentioned earlier. There's a piece called Fossils, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. And it uses the same effects. Fossils came later. Danse Macabre was first. Our next piece, where you're leaving Danse Macabre, everyone's probably like, shut up, Brie.
No.
Stop talking. So sometimes this happens to my friends in car rides where I'm like, ooh, there's a modulation there. And then my friends get a whole music theory lesson. You've been held hostage for that before.
That's okay.
A whole music theory lesson.
That's all right.
All right, so then we're going to talk about Gustav Mahler.
Okay.
Another very famous composer. We're going to talk about his Symphony No. 4, second movement. So Gustav Mahler was alive between 1860 and 1911. He was Austro-Bohemian, which is not a thing anymore, I don't think. So this piece was composed from 1899 to 1900. It incorporates Das Himmlische Leben, the heavenly life. Originally written in 1892, it shows a child's version of Heaven sang by a soprano in the symphony's final. It premiered in Munich in November of 1901 and had negative reviews in the showing and many others.
Oh,
This did not stop Mahler.
good for him.
He continued to work on revise and just kept having it performed. He was like, I'm not stopping. I like this piece. Screw you.
Honestly, good for him. Good for him.
All right. I'm going to get into Sibelius now, who was Finnish, so I'm probably not pronouncing this piece correctly. Valse Triste. This was composed in 1903 by Jean Sibelius, another very famous composer, 1865 to 1957. I said he was a Finnish composer. This translates to sad waltz.
Sad waltz.
He's just writing emo music.
He's writing emo waltzes out here.
He is. This was a short orchestral work. It was originally part of incidental background music for his brother-in-law's play, which I'm not even going to try and say the Finnish word. It just means death.
Oh. Death.
However, it's better known as a separate piece. This was the program notes for the production. It's really sad, but it's also kind of nice. By production, I mean the original play. It is night. The son, who has been watching beside the bedside of his sick mother, has fallen asleep from sheer weariness. Gradually, a ruddy light is diffused through the room. There is a sound of distant music, and the glow and the music steal nearer until the strain of a valse melody float distantly to our ears. The sleeping mother awakens, rising from her bed, and her long white garment, which takes the semblance of a ball dress, begins to move silently and slowly to and fro. She waves her hands and beckons in time to the music, as though she were summoning a crowd of invisible guests. And now they appear, these strange visionary couples, turning and gliding to an unearthly valse rhythm. The dying woman mingles with the dancers. She strives to make them look into her eyes, but the shadowy guests, one and all, avoid her glance. Then she seems to sink exhausted on her bed, and the music breaks off. Presently, she gathers all her strength and invokes the dance once more, with more energetic gestures than before. Back come the shadowy dancers, gyrating in a wild, mad rhythm.
They were doing something.
They're using more words. Hold on. The weird gaiety reaches a climax.
All right, now.
There is a knock at the door, which flies wide open. The mother utters a despairing cry. The spectral guests vanish. The music dies. Death stands on the threshold.
I knew it.
I got chills. I don't.
Yeah. That's an interesting. I was able to envision that very clearly in my head from that.
We should look up this play, but it's going to be in Finnish.
Yeah.
All right, so
it's like watching a ballet.
It is.
Like you don't know what's really they're not when you're watching a ballet, they're not saying anything, but you can still understand what's going on.
That is true.
We could do that.
We saved one of my favorite classical composers for our last classical, and then there's one more modern example.
Perfect.
So Shostakovich.
Yes.
I love him. He's wonderful.
Dimitri.
I love him and like Tchaikovsky is off probably a little bit higher than him, but those two are. He wrote very sad music, so he was also emo before it was emo.
Yeah, he was emo before it was cool. It's never a phase, Mom.
It's not a phase. Actually, he had a very that poor guy. He was a composer at a time when it was not safe to kind of speak out against Russia. He had the secret police at his house all the time. His health failed because of his stress, but he was. You were supposed to be writing very pro-Russia music at that time, and he was sneaking stuff into it.
Yeah.
And just skirting around what he was allowed to do. And he
had a rough go.
He held his ground.
Brave man.
By that point, a lot of other contemporaries Prokofiev had already fled. There's another big Russian composer at that time who had fled by that point. I can't think of who it was. Anyways, so we're going to talk about Piano Trio No. 2 in E minor, Opus 67, fourth movement, Dance of Death, aptly named, composed in 1944 by our good friend. Was completed in August of 1944, dedicated to his close friend, Ivan Solartinsky, who passed away February of that year. Aww. And this death affected him very deeply.
What a beautiful tribute.
Yeah. He had a tough time.
He did. Can you imagine, you're just chilling in the afterlife, though, and your friend creates an entire composition for you?
And that friend?
Wow.
Our last piece of music is an Iron Maiden song.
Yes.
So it's Dance of Death, 2003, an album and a song of the same name.
Okay.
Wikipedia had to specify that it was a metal band. So in case you don't know that Iron Maiden is a heavy metal band, Wikipedia is reminding you. So just some interesting facts. According to scholars via Wikipedia, the dance artwork does apparently show realistic dancing. They looked at how the gestures that the dancers were performing and the steps in the text and the vocab used in the text, and they decided that this was realistic dancing that was being portrayed.
Okay.
Dancing plague.
Oh, dancing plague.
This could be its whole topic, its own topic. I mean,
I think I have that on my list.
I'm not going to go into great detail.
Okay.
So groups of people danced frantically for days without stopping. They often end up going to churches or cemeteries because they thought they might be cursed, to try and uncurse themselves. There's lots of theories on what this could be, ranging from mass hysteria to whatever the group version of Folie à Deux is.
Okay.
Which is my favorite Fall Out Boy album.
Yes.
It could be epilepsy. It could be I think some people said ergot poisoning. I'm not going to go into it too much detail.
I'm going to say it. The Fae.
It was the Fae.
It was the Fae.
We almost went a whole episode without the Fae.
I brought us there.
All right, questions. I didn't write answers because I just do this on the fly.
All right, we're winging it. What drew you to this topic?
So I am a music nerd, if you couldn't tell. I like morbid and macabre things, though. And when we were doing the Paganini episode, Virtuoso, this Danse Macabre did come up of the idea of the devil and music, which actually was the topic I had that before this, where I switched them out because I was the devil and music is going to be a whole episode, but this kind of is too. So
we did our best.
But yeah, the Paganini episode.
Okay. Did this episode go the direction you thought it was going to go?
I changed the questions for the snapshots.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
I think we had talked about that.
Yes and no. So I knew a good amount about the music history of this. I didn't know about the art and the textual stuff. So I learned a lot concerning that.
That's awesome. And fascinating.
Yeah.
To my little art history brain. And what did you find the most strange about this topic?
Logically, it is common sense that death is the great equalizer, but it didn't really hit me until I did the research.
That's fair.
Like it's, and just, I think it's always interesting backtracking. I have a religious studies degree and my focus was on anthropology. And it's interesting to see kind of how the human brain took the horrific things that were going on in this time and put them into art. Mm-hmm. And I think that's super fascinating.
Yes, I 100% agree with you there.
Okay. That ends my supposedly shallow dive, but I went kind of deep into the Danse Macabre. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a suggestion for a strange or mysterious topic, a comment about an episode, or just want to chat, please reach out.
You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube. Comment directly on episodes on Spotify and YouTube, or leave a review of the podcast as a whole on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Find us on Instagram at something_strangepod, on Facebook at Something Strange Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at something_strangepod, and check out our strange content over at TikTok at somethingstrangepod01.
You can also send us a Gmail at somethingstrangepod24@gmail.com, and the 24 is numeric.
Well, strangers, it's time for us to part ways.
Until we meet again, keep your eyes open in cemeteries.
We'll be back again soon with another Something Strange.